so excited when that came out in 2001. Very, very excited. Having read The Lord of the Rings in the early 80s. Then we had The Two Towers. That was in 2002, because he made them all at the same time and then released them in consecutive years. And then the third film from The Lord of the Rings was The Return of the King. Now this won 11 Oscars, tying with Ben-Hur and Titanic. However, Return of the King, the Return of the King only received 11 nominations, so it did better than the other two, because they didn't win all of their nominations, making it the most successful movie at the Oscars. Now, as I say, I'm writing these down in release date order, not chronological order. When it comes to Star Wars, I will rant for hours if someone asks me what order the films should be watched in. I always insist it should be the date they were released, not chronological order, because there are things in the prequel trilogy, Star Wars prequel trilogy, that are made reference to. They make reference to the earlier films. If you watch them in chronological order, that wouldn't really make sense. With these films, it's not so important to watch them in release date order, but that's the way I'm doing it anyway. So the next three films, of course, were from The Hobbit, and they were, of course, An Unexpected Party, which was the title of the first chapter in The Hobbit. The first chapter was entitled An Unexpected Party. I think that was released in, was it, when was that released? When was that released? 2011, was it, I think? 2011 or 2012, something like that. Once again, Peter Jackson released them one film after another. We then had the Desolation of Smaug. That, I don't believe that's a chapter heading in the book at all. Still, it is a good title though, and matches pretty much what happens in the film as well. Peter Jackson really went on. I've heard a complaint about Peter Jackson that he makes the films too long, and there's a definite argument for that. However, I like them so much that I can cope with it. The only problem I had with the Hobbit films was the love affair thing, where it never actually started, but it was the feelings, the sort of feelings of romance and love and everything between, was it Feely or was it Keely? One of those two, who didn't look like dwarves at all. They just looked like, a couple of, long-haired young chaps, basically. They didn't look like dwarves at all. And the sort of romance between them and that totally made up for the film's elf. I wasn't into that. bit silly. But that's my only complaint about the films. I read The Hobbit when I was in, how old was I? I think I was 11 in 1982. I read The Hobbit, and then about a year after that I read The Lord of the Rings. So the last one, The Battle of the Five Armies, and that finished it off. It was 2013, was it? I think that was released, maybe. The battle at the end of that is fantastic. That's what Peter Jackson does really well. Big, massive set-piece battles that last forever. Absolutely love those. But yeah, very good. That's what I like the most about Peter Jackson's style. But I have to say that apart from a few little niggles, like I mentioned just now, the Hobbit films and the Lord of the Rings films, for me, they capture the spirit of the original books. Well, I say that. The Lord of the Rings definitely captures the spirit of the original books. The Hobbit was written more as a kid's book, because it was written before the Lord of the Rings, and Tolkien wrote it for his young kids. So that's why it has a more sort of playful, childlike feel to it, The Hobbit. Whereas The Lord of the Rings, he was sort of hassled into writing by his mate C.S. Lewis, and Tolkien didn't really want to do it, but in the end he really got stuck in and wrote a story that was 1,000 pages long, and he made it more of an adult book. But of course, when Peter Jackson came to make the films, he made the Lord of the Rings films in exactly the way they're written, sort of a bit tougher, a bit more adult. He couldn't then change the style to do a childlike Hobbit movie or movies. He had to continue with the same style, of course, otherwise it wouldn't have made sense with the films. So that's why the Hobbit films are a little bit tougher, a little bit harder than they are reflected in the books, or the book, I should say. That's because Peter Jackson had no choice when making The Hobbit. He had to do it in the same hard style as The Lord of the Rings. Okay, that's it, I think. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to subscribe,